Hello everybody! My name is MJ the Tutor, and you are listening to another episode of Accounting Makes Sense, an MJ the Tutor podcast. This podcast is focused on helping accounting students all over the world by offering a quick warm-up on various accounting and business topics that hopefully leads to the generation of bigger discussions and conversations. For all those studying or thinking about doing CIMA right now, this is for you. This week, we are covering a theoretical topic on capital structures. This one is sometimes referred to as M&M. No, not the chocolates, but if it helps you remember the theory faster, then by all means, think about this as the chocolate theory. Anyways, M&M stands for Modigliani and Miller. Modigliani and Miller were two economists who came up with the M&M theorem. Basically, the theory revolves around the main idea that the capital structure of a company does not affect its value. Let's dive into it a little bit deeper. Let's start off with the official stance of this theory. The M&M theory starts from a position that the value of a company that is funded only by equity, we shall now refer to as the unlevered company, is equal to the value of a company that is funded in parts by equity and in parts by debt. So this other company is referred to as the levered company in this case. So why is this the case? Why would the value of a levered company be equal to the unlevered company? Well, Miller, one of the M&Ms, explained this in a finance book using the analogy of a farmer selling milk. The farmer can sell the whole milk as is and fetch a specific amount for it. Let's say $100. So we can have a monetary visual on it. Now, the farmer could strip the milk and separate it into cream and skim milk. The reason he'll do this is that he can likely fetch a higher amount for the cream. Let's say in this case, $70 for the cream part. However, he'll be left with the skim milk, which he won't really be able to use and perhaps not be able to sell as well at premium and could likely only sell it at a reduced price. So in this case, let's say $30 for the skim milk. In total or in the end, the value he gets is the same. How does this equate to the theory? Well, the whole milk is basically the unlevered company, the one funded with equity only. It remains whole with a specific value. The cream and skim milk is the levered company, the one funded part equity, part debt. It might be beneficial to obtain debt because it is a cheaper method of funding, but then it does raise the equity risk, thereby raising the cost of equity. Hence, when put together with the higher cost of equity and the lower cost of debt, you should arrive at the same weighted average cost of capital, or WACC. But of course, this theory is effective only if we have the following assumptions. Number 1, the market is perfectly efficient, wherein share prices reflect all information about the company. Number 2, taxes are ignored in this situation. Number 3, bankruptcy exists, but there are no bankruptcy costs if it were to happen. As you can see, the assumptions are not quite realistic and has kind of highlighted the limitations of the first version of the M&M theory. M&M exists in a perfect world, and we know that we don't really live in one. Anyway, Modigliani and Miller introduced a second version of their theory to deal with some of the issues of the first version and kind of just make sure that it's more relatable in a real-world situation. So, we shall call the revised version M&M 2, where taxes are in existence. M&M 2 Proposition 1 discusses the value of the levered company being higher because of the tax shield involved in the interest payment on the debt that the company has. As mentioned, tax comes into the equation. There is financial benefit as interest is a tax-deductible item and saves the company taxes. In this proposition, the more the company is funded with debt, the more WACC is reduced, thereby making it better for the company. This thinking is not quite correct because, again, it is slightly in a perfect ideal world. The more debt you take on, the better. But in the real world, while there is some benefit to taking on debt, too much debt is really risky. There is the possibility of bankruptcy or default. So, Modigliani and Miller came up with a second proposition, the M&M2 Proposition 2. In this proposition, tax is in the M&M theory, but they do acknowledge that cost of equity increases as the company takes on more debt because it becomes riskier. So, M&M2 Proposition 2 is kind of a mix of M&M2 Proposition 1 and the original M&M. Anyways, in M&M2 Proposition 2, the company takes on more debt, the cost of equity does increase because of higher risks involved with taking on more debt, but because there is a tax shield benefit to the debt, cost of equity doesn't rise as fast as it would in the perfect world scenario. In essence, M&M2 Proposition 2 arrives at the conclusion that there is a slight benefit to funding the company with debt. And that is it for me today. I hope you were able to learn something today from this podcast with regards to M&M and their theory in capital structure. It is a bit heavy technically, but once you've grasped the concept, I think you're going to understand investment decision making a whole lot better. Thank you for listening to Accounting Makes Sense. As always, I am your host, MJ the Tutor. If you're keen to connect to be updated with the arrival of the new episode of this podcast or find CIMA resources online, please head on over to my website, www.mjthetutor.com. You can also hit subscribe on whichever platform you are using to listen to this podcast. So, I hope to see you again next time. Ciao for now!